Thank you very much. My name is Hannah Barrick. I am the Director of Advocacy with PASBO. And so obviously this proposal is something that we have been looking at and sort of focused on for several years. And we sort of realized that there wasn't a lot of data out there. And so we started looking at some of the implications, pulled together some data, used the Independent Fiscal Office, their sort of independent body created by the legislature. They looked at this proposal multiple times, I think back in 2012, 2013, 2014, and they put out a bit of an update just in January of this year. So we looked at that data. We also looked at school districts, annual financial report data and other data that the Pennsylvania Department of Education has out there, just to kind of try to get our hands around some of the implications here. So one of the things that's important, and you've heard folks talk about it already this evening, is the fact that school districts will continue to be able to levy a property tax to cover the existing debt in school districts. And so if you look at the school districts in the counties here in Canon-McMillan, you can see that a relatively large chunk of property taxes will remain in place to cover that existing debt. And I think, as Jay said before, looking at 2014-15 data, which is the most recently available data that we have access to, according to that data, about 98% of school districts across the state would continue to levy a property tax to cover their existing debt. And of those school districts, about 43% would continue to levy a property tax that would be in excess of 20% of the current levy. So it's a relatively significant amount of property taxes that would remain in place under this proposal. And again, it might be for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, or longer, depending on how long that debt is in place. The bill sort of, prior versions of the bill have locked in place that debt as of a certain date. And so it can change as of that point. But the important thing to understand is that this property tax to cover that debt would remain in place as we shift to the new and the increased personal income tax and the increase in expanded sales tax. So while your property tax wouldn't be eliminated off the board, you would still be paying these higher personal income and sales tax. So just something important to understand about how the mechanics of this proposal work. Another important sort of component of this is looking at the impact as we shift from school property taxes to personal income and sales tax, and what the implications are for different types of taxpayers. So currently out there, businesses pay school property taxes, and a proposal like this eliminates property taxes eventually over time, once the debt is gone, for taxpayers across the board. And so this certainly impacts businesses very differently than it impacts individual taxpayers. Currently, if you look at the sort of land use data that's out there and sort of match that up, looking at the commercial and industrial property that's out there, and match that up to the total amount of school property taxes that have been collected, business properties are responsible for about $3 billion of the school property taxes currently collected. When trying to figure out exactly how much of that would continue to be paid by businesses under this shift to personal income tax and sales tax, and how much would be shifted to individual taxpayers, we looked at the Independent Fiscal Office. They had done some analyses trying to understand the impact of that. So they determined that about the percentage of personal income tax that would continue to be paid by businesses, the percentage of sales tax that would continue to be paid by businesses, means that businesses would continue to pay about $1 billion, or would be impacted by about $1 billion in the increased sales tax and the increased personal income tax. That means that the remainder of that $3 billion revenue that was generated from businesses in school property taxes would be shifted to individual taxpayers and small businesses as a result of this proposal. And so looking at some of the specific data on the next slide, there we go, for the school districts in counties around here, the impact on individual taxpayers, when you factor out the sort of the amount of increased personal income tax and increased sales tax that businesses will be paying, means that individual taxpayers would be sort of picking up some of that burden that was originally paid by the businesses, sort of giving businesses a windfall to some degree. So Beaver County, they're going to be picking up about $11 billion, Fayette about 5.3, and a lot of this is really dependent on the number and the amount of commercial and industrial property that each school district in each county has. Greene County about 2.8, Washington County is about 16 million, and Canon-McMillan, just one school district, is about $5.2 million that would be, again, shifted from businesses to individuals once you have factored in the independent fiscal office estimates for how much those businesses would continue to pay an increased sales tax and personal income tax. Another implication that was highlighted by independent fiscal office and some others is the impact on taxpayers of the loss of federal income tax deduction for real estate taxes. So right now, as taxpayers, you can deduct your real estate taxes from your federal income tax. And the independent fiscal office sort of did an analysis and figured that this would sort of mean, as a result of the elimination of property taxes, again, eventually over time when the debt is paid off, would mean that Pennsylvania residents would be paying about $600 million more to the federal government in their federal income taxes than they're currently paying. And so while individual residents could still deduct their personal income tax or their sales tax, you can't deduct both. So the impact of that deduction means that you're going to end up paying more to the federal government. So using, again, the IFO's estimates, we looked at and did an estimate of the amount that the taxpayers in each of these counties would be paying more to the federal government on their federal income taxes as a result of the loss of that income tax deduction. And so, pretty significant numbers. Beaver County, over $4 million, Fayette, 1, Greene, 1.5, Washington, 5, and Canon-McMillan School District, just one school district, $1.6 million. Again, once fully phased in, the taxpayers would be paying more than they are now to the federal government. Another sort of important piece of this is we try to put all of these things together. And so understanding that there certainly are groups of taxpayers that will fare well under this proposal. There are other groups of taxpayers that won't fare so well under this proposal. And it really depends on the individual taxpayer. But when you look at taxpayers in the whole for each individual school district, and then we looked at them county-wide, when we factor in the impact of the increased personal income tax, again going from 3.07% to 4.95% in again the most recent iteration of the bill that we have seen. Again, we use the independent fiscal office's estimates there. When you factor in the impact of the increased sales tax and the expansion of the sales tax as well, again using the independent fiscal office's estimates there. When we factor in the impact of the federal income tax deduction, so the loss of that deduction and what that means to taxpayers in each county and each school district, and when we factor in that shift from businesses to individuals, it means that the taxpayers, again, in the aggregate, in the school districts in each of these counties are going to actually be paying more in taxes than they're currently paying in school property taxes. Again, this is looking at them in the aggregate. You certainly understand that there are some taxpayers that this is, will be paying less. But overall, taxpayers are going to be paying significant amounts more than they're currently paying in school property taxes once this is fully phased in. This is not even considering the fact that you will continue to pay school property taxes until that debt is exhausted. So this would be a fully phased in proposal. So in Beaver County, overall, taxpayers would pay about $42 million. Again, this is really focusing on individual taxpayers, and this is since we've removed businesses for the most part. $42 million in Beaver County. $34 million increase in Fayette County, a $6 million increase in Greene County, $86 million in Washington County, and just in Canon-McMillan School District, taxpayers would be paying about $13 million more in aggregate than they're currently paying in school property taxes. So sort of significant considerations about this proposal. Some of the implications for school districts under this proposal is looking at what happens to the sort of equity across school districts. And so if we look at education funding, as Jay said, we're just going to do a dollar for dollar replacement. And you saw the map that was up there before, sort of showing you where, what school districts and what areas of the state are responsible for levying the greatest amount of property taxes. If you factor all of the local revenue and all the current state revenue in together, and if we figured a fully phased-in replacement, it would mean that the state would be paying about $8,000 to one school district and about $27,000 per student, and about $27,000 per student to another school district. There's a really significant disparity in those funding levels. Again, the state would be responsible for funding almost all of education, with the exception of the very small amount that would remain or that would be funded by federal revenue. And so if you sort of look at the school districts here in each of these counties, you can see the high and the low in the funding per ADM, which is average daily membership, sort of these per student for this purpose. There's some pretty significant disparities there. The low in a lot of these counties is about $11,000, and the high ranges from $13,000 to $21,000. But still, none of these sort of school districts in this area are close to the $27,000 per student that would exist in some of the school districts in the state. So while we've sort of been working, or Harrisburg has been working to try to reduce the inequity that exists currently across school districts in their state funding, this would kind of lock it in place over time without really allowing much to change to deal with that disparity.